I'm really thrilled that you're able to appear on my podcast channel. Yeah. And I just wanted to, I've noticed that you have worked on such fantastic movies. And if, we could just discuss some of the titles that you've worked on. The first one that really stands out, of course, is Third Man. And this one, did you have to, when you were working on this picture, did you have to spend a lot of times in the sewer of Vienna and things like this?
Oh, yes, but I was 19 on the film and I was on what was called the second unit, and my unit was down the sewer. So I spent, I think, 3 weeks in the sewers. It
Oh,
was a regular, my daily trip.
mm,
And it was, actually, when we first went down there, we all thought, oh my God, it's probably going to smell. But actually, it didn't. It was really kind of clean. And then where at the beginning of the film you see it, it's very wide. It's really where the river, I think, comes in. And then there's a brewery nearby, still there, that I think used to discharge, their water into the sewers. But yes, we did go to a couple of different places in the sewers, but
mm.
and then we shot any plates or anything that were going to be needed because, as you know, they had to rebuild the sewers back in London because Orson Welles refused to go down. and
Oh,
he,
I see.
oh, he went. His first shot in the film, not in the film, but when he was there, he went down the sewers and saw the entire unit and the other actors all having a sandwich and a beer. And he went kind of mad and said, it's disgusting when they're eating in the sewers, and refused to ever go down again. And that's the reason they had to build the sewer. So it was an additional cost, you might say,
Oh my gosh.
to the production because he wouldn't go down. No.
Mm. Well, I heard that he disappeared at one point during the production, and that Corda had to come back and sort of retrieve him and bring him back to the location. Mm.
Now, well, at the very beginning, when he was caught, it was they phoned to say you're needed tomorrow.
Yeah.
So he was in Paris, I think, that time. And then so they sent somebody to Paris, and naturally he flew out and went to Rome. And then they get to Rome and he's gone somewhere else. He eventually turned up, and his very, very first shot in the film, not on the screen, but he did, was walking through the Prata past the whirligig on his way to the big scene on the wheel. That was his. He walked forward and he walked back again, and that was his work for the day.
My gosh.
And it had taken quite a lot of time to get him there.
Mm.
Um, yes, he could, and he would always go off in between um, his timing, and he wasn't there when Guy Hamilton had to double for him. And Carol said, "Well, you're not as broad-shouldered, so sort of put a coat hanger in your coat." And he put the hat on. Well, that meant that Orson had to wear a hat and that coat. And Guy did this sort of shadow running away
Oh, I
in
see.
one of the streets. That was Guy, yes. I know his lordship was not there then.
Interesting. Yeah, because, that's the thing is that Vienna has sort of become very much, they even have a third man museum there.
Oh, I know. I've been there. And then now I went there this year. I
Mhm.
had to do the 80th, and the man has bought the gravestone that is actually shot on in the film because under Austrian law, if you don't keep up the payments, I gather they sell on the gravestones, all the graves.
My gosh. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yes, nor did I. But and so that's his um, pride and joy now in the museum. I spent the afternoon there. I mean, I think it's the only film that has a museum named after it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And they still actually have, the tours of the sewers and stuff like that that you can take. Yeah.
Not, they can't do the sewers at the moment, but the
Really?
woman,
Hmm.
Brigitte Timmerman, she's made a nice living now for the last 30 odd years. She wasn't born, I think, when we made the film, but she runs what is called the Third Man Tour.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And
Um,
nowadays, the city is rebuilt, and I was made to, retrace my steps. And she said, "Oh, you know where that building is?" And I said, "No, because it's all modern and everything now."
mm,
And she just said, "The scene." I said, "Yes, I do remember the scene, but the building was, in a very different, dilapidated state back then. I mean, the whole city's, of course, been rebuilt since we made it, and we none of that is set dressing. It was the city as we found it.
amazing. That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Um,
no art direction there.
yeah. So, you've worked so much with John Huston. Um, One thing we wanted to ask you about was, Houston had a passion for painting. Did he ever share any of his painting works with you to see?
Oh, yes, I've seen, whatever he painted or if he gave something to somebody. He liked drawing and painting, but I don't think he ever sold anything. I mean, he'd give away, I guess, things that he didn't want to keep. But yes, he liked paintings, yes.
Did he ever speak much about his father? Yeah.
Not really, no. I mean, he wanted his father originally to play in Moby Dick. He wanted him to be in it. But and I think he did definitely wanted him in The Man Who Would Be King, but I'm afraid he died before that happened.
Mm. Did he ever speak much about his pictures before African Queen, things like Sierra Madre and um, things like Key Largo and stuff like that?
No, he never, he'd mention it, or you could ask him a question or say something about it, but he didn't, go on about his past pictures. No, he never did, and I don't think he did with any of the other crew. I mean, I'd be round, so if he was talking about it, I'd hear it, but no, not
Mm.
really.
When because during the, shall we say, the blacklisting, the witch hunt area, did he ever talk about this much or?
No, I mean, it would only be what you would sort of overhear if he was having a conversation with a friend of his about it. But no, he didn't.
Oh, I see.
You
Okay.
know, sort of English people didn't talk to him about it or
Oh,
ask
I
him.
see. Yeah.
Only it's probably his friends.
Now, a question I had too was on African Queen because that must have been an extremely difficult location to shoot on, especially since it was shot in Technicolor. So I knew the fellow who was the DOP, Jack Cardiff, and it must have been kind of problematic with a, very noisy Technicolor camera there on a location like that. Yeah.
Well, it was a very large camera, a very heavy camera, and yes, we were literally in what was then called the Belgian Congo,
Mm,
and they literally hacked the camp which we lived in out of the jungle. That there wasn't anything there before they built it for us, and they were sort of round kind of huts, you might say, for Houston and the two artists and Jack. And then there were like dormitories. There was a dormitory for the boys, dormitory for the girls, and um, a canteen, and we made a canteen, and we had a Belgian. I remember we had a Belgian couple who cooked for us, and I have to say they were terrific, and nobody was sick at all.
No, excellent, very good. Yeah. And yeah, because I remember there was it was an interview that Houston gave that apparently he was being served something called long pork or something like this. And they were trying to, they were sort of, saying, well, whether this was actually some sort of poor native who got, eaten or something.
He used to go on about that. And Guy Hamilton, who was the first assistant at that point, was furious with him. No, it was a lie. He used to say, yes, yes, came out of the pot. The king sacrificed some of his subjects to the cooking pot.
Oh
No,
dear. Oh dear.
but John always liked that story. Yes,
Yeah.
like to think that he did that.
I was also interested about you worked on the Misfits.
Yes,
And how was this working with Gable and Monroe on this picture? Yeah.
working with Gable was a pleasure.
Mhm.
Working with Miss Munro was not a pleasure.
I see.
She was, well, John did, well, he knew in advance, and his friend Billy Wilder had said after Some Like It Hot, it shouldn't happen to you, well, she was completely dominated by her coach, um, the Strasberg, Paula Strasberg, who was loathed by Houston, and I might say all the other actors, and everybody hated her. She was a terrible snob, and she really was an evil influence over Marilyn.
Mm.
And we never knew when she'd turn up, or if she knew her lines, or. And I was naive, pretty naive still at that age, but I didn't realize that the marriage, had already disintegrated until a little later in the film,
Mm.
when he moved out. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember there was a story with when she was working with Billy Wilder and Some Like It Hot, and she couldn't remember her lines, and he got to the point that he wrote the lines on the inside of the drawer of the furniture. So she'd open it up, and then she would look inside and says, "Read it," and it's in there.
Well, I presume she could learn her lines in her earlier pictures before she got involved with the Actors Studio and the Strasbourgs. But
Mm,
um, it was agony really for all the other actors. I mean, she could go 20 takes and not be able to say two words, by that time. Then they've got to remember it all again.
right.
No, she was not easy. But, much as I personally don't have any time for her, but on screen, one's got to say, she comes over very well.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was difficult for everybody else concerned who
Mm,
was not in her entourage, which was about 9 people the
no,
company paid for. Yeah.
my gosh.
Mm.
Um, the other picture that I noticed that you worked on, which was The Man Who Would Be King.
Yes.
This
That
is,
was in Morocco. Yeah. Which we shot in Morocco.
and so you were working with Connery and also with Michael Caine. How were they working with both of them together on this? Mhm.
They were delightful. They got on with each other. And it's the first time they'd worked together. And no, they were great fun. And, because on the one scene where they're telling the Moroccans how to be soldiers,
Mm.
Michael said to, well, Sean was doing it, and Sean said, yeah, but I was in the Navy and it's different. So, Michael, you were in the army. So he gave him the dialogue that sort of soldiers say to each other. And, we laughed because the poor little soldier, he didn't know what was coming out of their mouths. He didn't understand English and they were moving his feet. But everybody got on well, I must say. There were no rows or anything on that film. And
It
then
was,
it was a film John always wanted to make.
it's a wonderful movie, and you really see it, in there that it's a great picture. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. Another picture that you worked on that I found that was very interesting, which was a Murder on the Orient Express.
yes,
Yeah, this
that was
must have been
fun.
a
Mm.
very challenging film to work on because of the, confined sets and things like this on it. Mm.
Um, no, because Sidney Lumet, who I had worked with once before, was so organized and so disciplined, and he rehearsed the whole film with all the actors in in positions. You'd have a mock-up set or whatever, and so everybody knew what they were doing. And Sidney was somebody who planned the whole film, the shots on his script. He'd draw his angles and things, and he always beat his own schedule. That was something I think he liked to do. But it was, very methodical, and the actors got on, and there were really no problems.
Mm. Yeah, because it's a wonderful film because it has such a polished look to it, the whole picture. Yeah.
Oh,
It,
yes.
with Jeffrey Unsworth's photography and everything on it is beautiful. Yeah.
Yes, and the costumes and everything. And I think personally, I mean, I think it's without doubt the better of the two. There's been remade by
I totally agree.
Anna, which I thought was pretty awful, actually.
Yeah,
But
no, this was by far the best, and he was wonderful in it, and so it was.
and
I really super enjoyed it.
Finney was so good as Poirot. Yes.
Precisely, yeah, exactly. And it was just you could see how the whole cast just sort of melded together through the entire picture. Yeah.
Yes, they did. They all got on. They all knew each other, and it was fun. I do remember on that film we had a visit from, well, he was Prince Charles then. He's now King Charles. When he was quite a young man, came on the set because the producer um, was a great friend of of the Queen and everything else. So we had him and his very young brother then came visiting.
Interesting. Yeah. Another picture that stood out for me, which a lot of people really don't know that much about, but is really what was it's a quite an excellent film, and that is North Sea Hijack. Mm.
Yes, that was Andrew McLachlan, and I'm trying to think. Oh, Roger Moore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
And
that was in Ireland. Yes, we went to Ireland for that.
oh, really? And it had two titles because apparently, I guess in the US, they couldn't use, I think in the UK, it's known as folks.
Oh, well, we all thought of it as North Sea hijack, but
Yeah.
I
And then
think
so they had two titles that they used for it.
yeah.
Hmm.
But
And
again, Roger was always great fun to work with. He had a wonderful sense of humor.
mm,
And, never, the set was never sort of ugly or people having a row. He always, even if the producers were being difficult, he could handle them. And it was fun.
oh,
Yes. And Andrew, I'd worked with Andrew before. So, it was a pleasure to work on.
how was it working with James Mason on this picture? Mm.
Oh, I loved James Mason because I did, in my very early days, Pandora and the Flying Dutchman.
I see. Okay.
And again, well, he was always a delight and very, very professional. And no, he was one of my favorite actors. I remember that.
Because my mother met him when he was doing 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea for Disney.
Ah, right.
He loved Siamese cats, and he would paint them too. And so he would come to the artist department in the animation building and show them his paintings that he'd done on his Siamese cats. Yeah.
That I didn't know, so that's something to add to the book.
But no, I've always heard that he was always quite a highly professional, wonderful person to work with.
Oh, yes, yes.
Uh,
Well,
how was
they'd
uh,
all done it before. It was before the times of stars being a little, shall we say, over the top occasionally.
how was Tony Perkins to work with on this picture? Mm.
Oh, Tony was very funny. He couldn't understand me when I said I'd never smoked pot, which I never had, as I'm not a smoker.
Yeah.
Oh, he said, no, no, that's not possible. And he came in with seeds for me to grow in my
My God.
garden. So he was very funny. He always used to be asking me questions like that. Have you tried it yet? You know, how are you feeling? What's the reaction? So he was fun.
Yeah, because well, of course, he was in Orient Express as well. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So, it's nice when you work with people more than once.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
And if you got on with them the first time, hopefully you're going to get on with them even better the second.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you worked on a film called Lost in Space.
Oh, I was doing the second unit for somebody. The first unit was a woman who had once been sort of my assistant.
Hmm.
So I was, yes, I could cope with William Hurt, etc. But that one had its problems because he was being rather difficult with them, and then you had the visual effects people and the kids. It was, as I said, I was second unit, but I went there for a couple of days to help them out, and I finished up, I think, being there until the end, which was, a couple of months or more.
I see.
So
Mhm. Yeah,
I
because
don't know, I don't know if it was successful or not. I don't think particularly so.
yeah, it went on for a little while. I think it was, because it was a Netflix series that they did for a while. Yeah, which was a revival of the
Um,
original Irwin Allen series. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. And so it's yeah.
yes.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Any more you're going to ask me about?
I think we've just about covered everything, actually. Yeah, we've gone through, all one thing I was kind of asking was the one where you had to go into the swimming pool um,
Ava?
with Ava. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
that was Pandora.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
It was when she was at that point sort of engaged to Frank Sinatra, and he'd flown into Spain. Not that we ever saw him, and so she didn't particularly want to go in the sea that night. And well, it was warm, so I didn't. And I was the youngest on the unit, so
Oh,
I was told you'll get in the water, get in the water and swim around a bit, So I was young, so I didn't mind. Um, and she was great friends. I mean, and she was very good. I worked with her on Night of the Iguana as well. So
okay. Hmm.
so we'd known each other quite a long time.
Hmm. Interesting. Wow.
Yes, that was an interesting film, Night of the Iguana
Oh,
too.
yeah. Tell me about it. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, well, that was Burton and Deborah Carr. You had Elizabeth Taylor. No, she was only a girlfriend in those days, but she used to come out every day.
Mm.
And Burton was very professional on it. And it was interesting being in Mexico. And we really put Puerto Vallarta on the map. It was a teeny weeny fishing village with kind of one hotel. We were actually on an island where they'd built things, accommodation for us, but they built it out of the sand without drying it. So we had a very nasty accident with the first assistant where the balcony collapsed after a night's work. So it was, but it was John loves Mexico, or loved, I should say, in the past. And so it was an interesting place to be.
That sounds interesting. Wow, amazing. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it was quite a good film. And Tennessee Williams, he had to come down. Well, he was asked, and I only wish I'd kept the rewrite of the end, but I gave it back to him, and I gave all my papers, back to the studio. But it was
mm,
fascinating end that he rewrote, but we never used it, unfortunately.
mm, interesting. Yeah. Well, you also worked on A Picture of Cat and the Canary.
Oh, well, that was somebody got me into that. We had no money at all. We were in a, what was a stately home. It was one of the Rothschild houses, and we couldn't afford any furniture, so everything that was there was covered up with dust sheets. And he was a very odd director, and
Mm.
I never saw the end result. I don't know how it did, and I wouldn't have thought terribly well.
Well, who was the producer of this one? Or
I can't even remember of that one. It was a very low budget,
okay. Mm.
very low. Yes.
Yeah, because this was a remake of the old Bob Hope version that was done back in the 40s. Yeah.
Right. Oh, it was, not a particularly, well, it wasn't a good script. At least I didn't think so. And
Mm.
it was, as I said, on minimal budget. So I can't remember too much about it. But,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's all I can say about it.
Okay, no worries. Yeah. Well, anyhow, I think we've just about covered everything. So I think it's wonderful to thank you very much for, you know, appearing for me. This is wonderful. Yeah.
I'm going to Zurich for their what they call retrospective um, program in November. They booked me for the African Queen and the third man yet again. So I haven't been to Zurich for years, so it'll be a nice trip as long as I can make it.
And you were just in Locarno, weren't you? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
That was for the happiest days of your life, which was, it was a pre-runner or precursor to the St. Trinian's um, school days. I do remember we laughed a lot, with the silly things that went on in the school. So it was, good fun. And Margaret, the two main actors were great. We always used to say about Margaret, do you think she knows how funny she is? Because she was such an odd character,
No, I see.
it was fun. Yeah.
But it's a great city and it's a nice town. Yeah.
Yes, it's quite hilly, isn't it?
Hmm.
You've got the flat bit, and then you've got sort of sharp sheep streets that go up very steeply.
Exactly.
And then I went on. I tried, I didn't get off at or he didn't stop on the funicular to go and see the famous um, church and monastery, I think it is, where you take the funicular and you get up and walk. But when I got off it, I could see how far I'd have to walk, and I had a bad leg, so I thought there's no way I'm going to make it down those steps and up again.
Hmm.
And then I saw I went on a boat to the island where they've got a tropical garden. I mean, it's a beautiful
Oh,
garden.
the one near Brizago. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I did that. So I would have done more sightseeing if my leg had been better, but in the heat, I thought I just cannot physically, walk around here. I've got to sit down. But no, well, I love Italy, and that's the Italian side of
Exactly.
Switzerland. It's,
Yeah. And um,
although the food is not the same as in Italy, really.
well, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Well, it wasn't then, but so Bologna, I love. I must admit, I think I've been there now 4 or 5 times. Are you going next year?
Yes, I will be. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think I'll hopefully see you there. Depends, I suppose, on what dates you book and
Exactly.
what they're showing, which we won't know till next year.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
but I love Bologna. I think it's a fascinating city too. So
But I was going to mention something, an interesting story about that island in Brizago that you went to
yeah,
was that used to be the island where Paulette Goddard lived with her husband after Charlie Chaplin, because she
really.
was married to Eric Ramirez Remarque, who did All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yes, there is now. I mean, they've made it into a hotel up at the top, but I just wondered how they built it in those days or when it was built. It's extraordinary, yes, the vegetation there because that's what it's known for, isn't it?
And what I'll do, I'll end it from here. Makes it easier for you. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.